Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes, via Zoom.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
and Mr. Ewing.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. We have recognitions. Dr. Burke, excuse me.
Yeah, we'll start Morning Grange. Dictionaries here. Marianne Hara, is that right? You want to come up and our friends from Morning Grange have been providing dictionary. I've been here since 97 and I know you've been doing it since then. So probably many, many more years. So
We've been doing it for 16 years. This is our 16th year. Sorry, thank you. So we've been doing it for 16 years. And so far we've donated over 3,500 dictionaries to the third graders in the school district. So, and we really enjoy supporting the youth. And that's one of the projects that we do among many others to help do that. So thank you so much for inviting us tonight.
well, thank you. And we keep adding schools and you keep adding dictionaries.
Exactly,
So
exactly. So it was a lot of fun to go to the new school this year. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Next up, we have Teachers of the Year, and I see Mrs. Hackney is working her way up here.
Adrian Beasler, third grade teacher at Timber Sage, formerly teacher at Prairie Creek Elementary. Adrian's been with us since 2016, and then prior to coming to Spring Hill, you were a fourth grade teacher in Fort Riley, right? Very good. Has a bachelor's in elementary education from KSU and has a master's in learning and well-being from the University of Missouri. So as I was reading through some of Adrian's work or some of the information as she was being considered for Teacher of the Year, this quote really stuck out with me. She said, "My greatest contribution to education has been providing a space where my students feel loved and worthy so they can learn wholeheartedly." And when I'm in your classroom, I see that, and I think your principal would attest to that too. So we have Adrian Beasler, our elementary teacher of the year. Nice round of applause. Do you have any guesses?
sure.
I think I just want to say thank you to, I know Dr. Burke and Mr. Wilson were there on my first day when I got hired in Spring Hill District at K-State. And it's been an amazing place to work and continue working. And we have amazing elementary schools and staff. So it's a good place to be. I'm happy to be here and be very supported in our district. So thank you.
Thank you.
And, oh, go ahead.
And our secondary teacher of the year, Jessica Gazano. Come on up, Jessica. And Mrs. Cole and I were at your interview. I remember it well. Jessica's been with us since 2013. She started out as the elementary art teacher and went between three buildings, moved on over to the middle school, Spring Hill Middle School, and is now at Woodland Spring Middle School. She has a degree in art education, K-12 from KSU. So the Wildcats are representing today. And prior to the Spring Hill School District, taught middle school at Fort Riley as well. You guys are really representing that area. A quote that stuck out to me that Jessica had to say was, "Education is a collection of people with unique strengths, diverse beliefs, various views, and individual experiences that are woven together to create defining moments for the students we teach." And again, I've been in your art class room several times and you see that in action. It looks like you have some guests in the audience, and if you want to say a few words, and we'll get some pictures.
Okay. Yes, I brought my husband, Nick, and my daughter, Kinley, with me tonight. So I will just say thank you again for the support from all of the principals and the staff that I've worked with that are here today. There's a lot of faces back there that I've worked with. And it's been quite the journey to go from elementary school to middle school, opening up a couple of new buildings, and seeing the kids all the way from elementary to middle school just grow has been very fulfilling. So it's been a great place for me to grow, and now for my daughter to learn and grow too. So we love it here.
Well, we certainly hate to follow that, but we are going to go ahead. So Woodland Spring, Mr. Sprague.
I'll talk about this in a minute. First, people I want to recognize, I want to kind of focus on our strategic plan a little bit tonight. Our first one of our goals is MTSS. And I just want to recognize our language arts teachers and math teachers, Cooper Allison, Sarah Collins, and Stacy Floyd in language arts. And in math, it's Autumn Beshore, Megan Sandberg, and Keaton Clark in math. So one of the things with MTSS is we had to develop a way to meet students' needs for targeted support and intensive support. And in the middle school setting, that's not an easy thing to do. And I just want to recognize these people. They've worked really hard and they've done a lot of great things. We've had data this year that we've never had available to us before, which has allowed us to really focus in on specific skills that students need. And they're doing a fantastic job. Second part of our strategic plan that I want to talk about tonight is our student leadership section. One of the things we started this year was a mentoring program with our 8th graders. And they've done a tremendous job learning and growing. Today starts Kindness Week for us. And we always have a monthly assembly anyway with our kids. And we met with our mentors and they said, hey, we want to be a part of this. And not only were they a part of it, but they planned it, they led it, and they did a tremendous job just talking to students about kindness and being really active with the students. And it's not easy to stand up in front of your peers and talk. Matter of fact, it was funny because they said, you make it look easy, Mr. Sprague, but this isn't easy. But they did a tremendous job. So I'm really proud of our kids and all the work that they've done. Finally, I want to recognize Mrs. Amy Berman. She is our school librarian, and she just held a book fair. And you're probably wondering what happened to my hair. Yes, this is intentional. I made a deal with her that if we sold 500 books, that I would dye my hair purple. I really didn't think we would get there on our very first book fair at a middle school level. But not only did we get there, we kind of blew that number out of the water as the numbers came in on Friday and today. So yes, I do have purple hair and I hope it doesn't stay purple too long. I know I'm going to be working really hard to get the purple out, but the kids loved it. The teachers loved it. And I've gotten a lot of raised eyebrows when I've gone out in public. I was just at Ottawa Middle School and I got a lot of stares.
Spring Hill Middle School, Trevor Gertzen, and then we'll have Spring Hill High School after that.
Can't top the purple hair for this time. So my recognitions are for a group of 8th grade teachers. Molly Dugan led a group of 8th grade teachers to take our entire 8th grade class to an Auschwitz exhibit about a week and a half ago at Union Station. She had an opportunity just through some things she had seen in the news to get some tickets to the Auschwitz exhibit. She applied for it, got the tickets. And then for her, she said it's one of the most nerve-wracking things she's ever done, which I can agree to do that. To get 150 some kids organized together and take them on a field trip, but did a tremendous job of gathering and organizing those kids to go on that field trip to the exhibit. Not only was it Molly Dugan, but also Jordan Coopersmith, Sarah Hayes, Ashley Jasper, and Taylor Woodward. One of the things that I know as a principal, you're nervous anytime your kids go somewhere because they're a representation of you, of your building, of themselves. But Molly said one of the security guards came up to her afterwards and complimented her on being a school that was just well-behaved, well-mannered, and well-organized. So that was really encouraging for us to get that report back. So just want to celebrate those 8th grade teachers and a great field trip.
Mark Williams, Spring Hill High School.
Good evening. I have three brief recognitions this evening. One, I'd like to recognize Carla DeCosta and our National Honor Society students. I just got back from the National Honor Society induction ceremony. It was a beautiful ceremony where they inducted 42 new members into the society. So it was a great evening. Also like to recognize Chantel Volkman. Chantel Volkman works in the office as the administrative assistant for Gary Howard. Chantel basically makes all of our events run for us. She does the programs, counts the money, gets the money boxes, ticket gates, transportation, you name it, Chantel does it. Plus she's also the voice of our senior nights, and we have plenty of senior nights, it seems like, at our competitions. And last, I'd like to recognize Rebecca Fawcett. Rebecca Fawcett's our media center specialist, and she's more than that to us at Spring Hill High School. She's also our frontline defense on technology. She's the go-to person for our kids when it comes to technology. And she always does it with a smile on her face and drops anything she's doing to help out those kids. She's still a go-to person for our teachers when it comes to instructional ideas, cross-curricular activities, ideas. And now she's our go-to person on our Facebook page for the high school and social media and everything else like that. So I just really appreciate everything that Rebecca does for Spring Hill High School. Thank you.
Dayton Creek, Darcy Sly.
Good evening. I would like to recognize my front office staff tonight. Sharon Dvorak is my administrative assistant, and she has just been the extraordinaire. She does everything, including lunch duty. We've had some absences in our kitchen, and so Sharon's jumping right in there and serving lunches like crazy. And so she's enjoying it. I think that sometimes she enjoys that break from the front office and enjoy seeing all the kids. I also want to recognize Angela Williams. She's our registrar. She's new this year, but she's learning quickly everything that she needs to do. And she's quick to ask when she does need some support and advice. And we find the right people around the district to help her, but she's been superb in the front office. Michelle Robertson, my school nurse. Anytime we need anything extra above and beyond being a school nurse, she's willing to do it. And I appreciate that. And then my counselor, Abby Robertson, she's in the lunchroom right there with me most days. And if I'm not there, I know that she's got it under control. And anytime that we have any kind of issue around the building, she's one of the first to jump up and help me with it. So I really appreciate them. Thank you.
Spring Hill Elementary School, Tammy Endicott.
I wanted to take a minute to recognize all the paraprofessionals at Spring Hill Elementary. I was thinking through every single one of them. We have quite a few. And there is not one who is not exceptional in our building. And they show leadership. They're a big part of what we do every single day, big part of dismissal every single day. And if we need something done, our paraprofessionals just step up and do it without even being told. And I couldn't ask for more from them. Plus, they're a lot of fun. They keep us in laughter and lots of pranks and jokes around the building. So love having each and every one of them. They're really, really good. The other person I wanted to recognize was Shelley Huber. She put together a scavenger hunt for our students on Friday, the day before Halloween. And she paired up the older kids with the younger kids. And a lot of the kids, after they were done, were coming to me and saying, "Thank you, Mrs. Endicott." And I said, "Don't thank me. I didn't do this. This was Mrs. Huber. Go thank Mrs. Huber." But a couple of funny stories that the fifth grade really, I think through our leadership, Leader in Me and leadership that we've been doing the last couple of years, this was just the staff standing around and the students doing their scavenger hunt and the older kids really taking leadership and taking the little ones. And it was kind of funny to watch them. They were super responsible. One of the other older students saw one of their friends and like, come on, come with us. And she was like, "No, I got to get my child. I got to get my child." She was taking it so seriously. So it was really fun to watch, a fun time. And Mrs. Huber did a great job.
Prairie Creek Elementary School, Jody Cole.
Good evening. We have some amazing people doing some extraordinary things. I would like to recognize the teachers at Prairie Creek Elementary. They are some of the most creative and innovative individuals I've ever worked with. While the last couple of years have been tough with numerous changes, our teachers have stayed the course. They continue to provide a positive and safe classroom where students can learn and be successful. They have high expectations for the students and themselves. And they always find ways to make learning fun for the students so they stay focused and engaged in their learning. I am truly blessed to work with these individuals every day. Thanks.
Timber Sage Elementary School, Mika Bauer.
Good evening. Tonight, I would like to recognize our instructional support team at Timber Sage Elementary School. That is made up of Miss Lisa Conzum, our instructional coach, Miss Erin Randolph, our reading interventionist, Miss Jamie Wise, our math interventionist, as well as Miss Jenna Norris, our reading paraprofessional, and Miss Jamie Gable, our math paraprofessional. This team works collaboratively with our teacher teams to ensure that we are providing solid core instruction in both reading and math. In addition, they guide us through using our data to determine which students might be in need of additional time and support. Finally, Ms. Randolph, Ms. Wise, Ms. Norris, and Ms. Gable all provide evidence-based interventions to our students who need that additional time and support. I'm very proud of this team. Thank you.
I don't believe Beth Cooper could be here tonight from Wolf Creek. They had a family emergency, but I do know that Doug Swin wanted to talk to the board. If there's any other directors, you might want to start making your way to the front.
Good evening. Given tonight, you will hear shortly from Mr. Gordon, a review of our annual audit. I thought it was time to give a big shout out to all those that made this year's audit a success. It takes a lot of people paying close attention to detail and getting things turned in a timely manner. So a big shout out district-wide for all those who help in the record keeping process. But I wanted to specifically thank the three ladies that make up my staff. And I'm going to pull up a picture because it's always nice to have a picture with a name. First, I'd like to mention Candy Hughes. Candy Hughes came on board about 3.5 years ago when Sarah Gehring decided to have her first baby. So we needed help making sure payroll went out timely. Candy had that experience, and so we brought her on staff part-time to help with that. And then she did such a great job. We decided to keep her on and be backup for both Laura and Sarah. Sarah, in fact, is getting ready to have a second child here shortly. So Candy will be taking over and doing payroll for a couple months while she's on maternity leave. So big shout out to Candy for all she does. She just steps in and does whatever's asked from her and does it with such a very positive attitude. Sarah, we did steal from the high school. I have no regrets whatsoever doing that. She was fantastic at the high school, but she's been a wonderful payroll coordinator. She makes sure everybody gets paid timely. We've never missed a payroll. And here in a couple of days, we'll have another $1 million going out to pay 600 plus people. So she does a great job of being accurate and detail oriented. And then certainly last but not least, Laura Worthen. She's been with us for a little over 8 years now, does accounts payable for us and accounts receivable. Strong attention to detail. These three ladies combined, it's through their efforts of being very meticulous, very organized, that makes the audit go very smoothly. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to all three of them.
Cindy Jaldos, Director of Special Services.
Good evening. I wanted to take a few minutes to recognize our two ELL teachers in the district, Tracy Bognich and Kathleen Navratil. Both are new to the position in our district this year. They've been in the position before, but not here at Spring Hill. They've really been working hard to create solid processes to really strengthen the program as a whole, and that's very much appreciated, especially starting a new position. So they've really hit the ground running with that. I also wanted to recognize our school psychs. November 8th through 12th is School Psych Week. And so we really appreciate their leadership and their knowledge and their support in working with students. And just kind of knowledgeable, these individuals hold specialist degrees and they are pre-knowledgeable in child development. They have multiple processes, areas of psychology, assessment, testing, psychological testing, and then in special education law. So their leadership's an important part of their work with us. So thank you.
Not seeing anybody else, then I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have business with individuals.
No cards were received.
Thank you, Katie. Let's move on to the consent agenda, which contains the approval of the consent agenda, approval of the minutes, and personnel. Any questions, comments?
I thought it was nice to see more hires than resignations.
Let's do.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Katie?
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
Mr. Winbolt,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sealing. Yes, approved.
Thank you. On to our first discussion item, orchestra trip. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, Mr. Tygoon Ozakinski is here, and he's going to talk to you about the kids going to Winter Park, I believe.
Yes, good evening. I'm standing here before you tonight to ask for your approval to take majority of our program to Winter Park, Colorado, between the dates March 31st and April 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. I believe the agenda is, the itinerary, the abridged version of the itinerary is attached. I have a longer version as well to be shared with you if necessary. So far, the dates are, we know the dates where we're staying. Majority of the activities that were involved, students have chosen this. Well, I've kind of narrowed it down to this location. To be quite honest, we had Orlando, Florida scheduled for last spring break. Didn't happen. I had to do something for my seniors and we need a shorter destination. And we did Chicago successfully in the spring of 2019. So with the brief discussion with seniors and the parents, they decided not to go to the same location again. So shorter location would be, we decided that it would be Winter Park, Colorado. They like the quick little ski getaway kind of thing. So, but there's an educational purpose as well, that we will be participating in a contest, have adjudicators and have a wonderful experience, hopefully over 3 days. Any questions?
Mr. O,
Yes,
I believe there's no expense to the district, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, feel free to ask all those kind of questions. Sorry, I should, of course, that's, so I put briefly right there, I can see, great. 446 is the lodging expenses. That includes 3 days of rental. I'm not a skier. I grew up around water. I've been told that's not that bad for 3 days worth of rentals. That includes 1 day of lessons, group lessons. So if students chose to, one thing I've been told though, if students chose to do skiing for the next 3 days, that's what they get their lessons for. And if they change their mind next day, okay, we want to do snowboard, now they have to pay for lessons. So they're discouraged to switch their minds, I guess. Other than that, 140 is just an average number. We have the bus cost is nearly $7,000 divided by average of 50 students. That comes nearly $140. So for our meals, we're lucky we have a local Colorado business, one of our students, their grandparents, and they've decided to cater for us. So we don't know of the cost yet. In fact, I'm meeting with them at the high school on Thursday afternoon. They're coming in town to see their grandkids and family and all. So that's great because one of the disadvantages of standing at this lodge, if you will, they're great, almost like renting an Airbnb for four students at once. So we weren't entirely sure how to provide food. I mean, we were going to have to schedule a meal for every restaurant we go to. So I think they're going to help us out financially on that. That's about it. That's what I have. Please, if you have any questions.
How many students are you taking? Did I miss?
42, maybe 4 students max have confirmed.
Okay, sounds fun.
And how many chaperones?
Addition to Mr. Euster and I, we have 2 male chaperones confirmed and 3 females.
Good.
It's a great idea for a trip. It's open to the whole orchestra?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And we have 53 students enrolled so far this year.
So the real question, are you going to ski or snowboard?
Me, if I can avoid either, that'd be okay. I like hiking.
Yeah.
Well, this sounds like a great trip. I mean, our kids have definitely benefited from, I'm not sure about Chicago over St. Patrick's Day. That was a little rough, but
We made it work.
no, it's a really fun trip. And so I think they really learn a lot more than what they think they're going to learn on the trip. So
That's right.
Any other questions? All right, we'll look for the action item coming back next time.
Sounds
you.
good. See you guys soon. Thank you.
Next, we have the December 13th board meeting location.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about at the last meeting was maybe going ahead and keeping the December 13th meeting here. And then that way we could live stream it. We wouldn't have to try to set up live stream at the high school. And then when the meeting is over, we would go ahead and go over to the ESC, have dinner there. And then those of you who are going to the ball game could still make it over to the ball game. But the board meeting is scheduled to be at the high school. So we would need to make a change so that the location is at the Shadak instead of the Spring Hill High School.
So this doesn't show a time. Is it still 4:30? Just want to make sure.
Right, the time wouldn't change. It's still scheduled for 4:30. That way we can have the board, then we can have the dinner, and then you can still make it to the ball games.
Okay.
Sometimes there are concerts, but there wasn't any concerts this year. Basketball, yes.
Sounds good. Any discussion on the change of location for our December 13th meeting? All right, well, that action item will come later. On to November 29th work session.
Yeah, I've had a couple board members mention that on the work session, it might be nice to start at 6 instead of waiting until 7. And since it's still a board meeting, but it's very compacted. And so maybe start a little earlier and get done a little earlier. I said I would bring it to you to see what your thoughts were.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Sounds good to me, especially now that it's dark at 2 p.m.
5:15. Any other comments, questions? Okay, that'll be something else here soon. On to action items. 8.01. First up is change December 13th meeting location to Spring Hill District Administrative Center.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Katie?
Mr. Wimble,
Yes.
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
and Mr. Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you. On to November 29th. Board work session time, moving to 6 p.m.
And that's here as well, correct?
Yes.
Move for approval of changing the time to 6 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to change the time to 6 p.m. on November 29th. Katie?
Mr. Updike,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Sealing,
Yes.
Mr. Hoffman,
Yes.
and Mr. Wimble.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. Discussion items number 2. Dr. Burke?
Yeah, Tim Meek is on his way up here to give you a bond construction update.
All right, good evening. I'll go through this fairly quickly here so we can move on. On the financial page there's been no changes to that on the bond stuff from last time. No changes, contingencies or anything like that. Project updates, Dayton Creek. Finally did get some seeding done. It was fairly late, so we're holding them to, we have a 2-year warranty as well. So if the seed doesn't get started to our satisfaction, we still hold the warranty for that to get it started. So we'll have them back out doing some more overseeding. But other than that, the project is pretty well finished up. We're working to try to finalize all the closeout documents from all the contractors and get the financials closed out on it here in the next couple of months, so, and bring that back to you. Spring Hill Middle School number 3. Masonry walls just continue to go up on that. The steel framing every day you go out, when I go out there, just continues to become more and more of a building. You can see the building. It's kind of neat when that goes up because you can see it go quickly. Public improvements, 192nd and 193rd. The public roads are ready for paving. 191st Street, the deceleration lane we've got to put in there. They're working on it today, and hopefully by Wednesday before the rain hits, they'll have it ready for paving so that with all the gravel and compacted AB3 and everything else, so that we'll be able to have the roofer in next week, or not roofer, I'm sorry, that's on my mind, it's the big one. The asphalt guy in next week is his schedule to get those 2 areas paved and get the public improvement part of the job that we have working with the city of Spring Hill on. We're getting ready in the next week, as soon as I get some things squared up on the steel framing, to begin putting up exterior metal studs on the classroom part of the building. Challenge successes there, doing steel, has been doing a great job of getting us the steel there on time. The classroom area is all there. The kitchen office area, the steel is there ready. It hasn't started been put in place, but they're keeping the steel there ahead of time, which is a pretty good feat right now. So I'm really glad to see they're ahead of it and standing up on it. The long span joists that go in the gymnasium and auditorium area should be there middle of December. So we should be ready for that. Challenges has been Delta roofing, availability of roofing material. We've been working hard with them. We sat down with them. We came up with some alternate roofing manufacturers even that we could try to do because of some availability of some fasteners and stuff. Well, we got it down and had an alternate ready to go. And Garland Company somehow was able to, when they knew we were going to another manufacturer, was able to come up with all of their resources across the country because they did not want to lose it, and has pulled together from multiple locations, fasteners and stuff, so we can begin. January 13th is when we're going to start roofing, when the ISO, the roof insulation, shows up. So kind of nice that they came to the table and was willing to help us out there. I didn't really want to switch because we've been doing Garland, and it's nice to have the warranty and make one call to one person. Almost any roof we have is under that. So they came back, plus there could have been a slight upcharge, not a lot. We were looking about a $30,000 upcharge to do it, which I felt pretty fortunate that was all that we were going to be at this point, because roofing materials in general are up considerable. So safety report on that project, 176 days, no lost time accidents. A few pictures there I'll let you look at your own. Continue every day you go out, you just see a little bit more and more go up. So other construction and maintenance projects. Spring Hill District Admin Center. This is our project closeout, financial closeouts. Total project budget originally was $7,350,000. Actual project cost was $6,816,000. Total project savings $533,000. $314,000 of that was savings on construction budget. We used none of the contingency that we had, so all of that money came back. We were able to save some money because of the parking lot out here. We used the laydown yard. We had money into our building, the Education Support Center, to do a laydown yard. We chose to do it out here and try to use that as the parking lot. And we had a sufficient base to save quite a bit of money on that. So that, and again, we didn't get into any cold weather. We didn't have to use any cold weather. We used some of our own people to do some of the labor work. So a lot of those things added up to that savings. And then furniture came in a little under what we had budgeted too. So furniture, fixtures and equipment. So all of the electronics and everything else too. So safety report on that job, 235 accident-free days and a total of 33,320 man hours were worked accident-free on this building. Solar panel project, board approved that back on 3/22/21. Scheduled to complete fall of 2021. We're still keeping our fingers crossed that that's going to happen. We're really, Kylie may not like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Right now, we're shooting towards the 24th, I believe it is, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, since there's no kids in, and hopefully being able to do the tie-in to the solar project. That doesn't mean it's going to be completely up and going, but we'll have the tie-in and we just have to throw the breakers and stuff like that. So we have to shut down the power into the high school for that. So it's a good day to do it. Something goes wrong, it also gives them 4 or 5 days to get some other part in if they have to. Right now, we're waiting on a transformer that's not here. So that's the one item that may hold us off from doing it that day. But if not, then it may have to wait until Christmas break, because there's just not a lot of days there where there's not kids around here. There's not a practice going on. There's not something going on. We're trying to put the kids first. So one of the things we talked about last time was potential for having to put a new service into the high school. Kansas City Power and Light went back and had their engineers look at it one more time, and they believe they can put the recloser, was the big deal that they had to do. They believe they can put it in the existing service loop we had. I think that a lot of it came down to money too. They were trying to get us a little future proofed. And since this is a tie-in with Kansas City Power and Light, I say that, Evergy, then I think it's a little bit of, they decided that they didn't want to make us do it because it would cut into our savings that much as well. And they ran their numbers again, and we have enough power and enough wire capacity to do everything they need to do to backfeed the power into the grid if we need to. So, again, hopefully if everything goes right, we'll be able to do that, because that will also, when we put what they call a recloser, which is a fancy breaker system that can go off and on in milliseconds, basically, to shut down any types of spikes going one way or the other. And they can monitor the power use and everything else through this recloser. It's a pretty amazing little device. They have to shut down power to the building to do that. So we're hoping to get all of that done on the same day, on the 24th. So the picture that you see there is a little bit older. All the panels are up. They're tying all of the panels together right today. They were, so getting them all wired up and into the transformers that are out there. And so the next steps really is to get our transformer in for the high school and get it put in. So that's pretty much my report for this week or this month. Any questions?
I just want to say well done on getting the roof fastener thing. I don't know if you called their bluff or what you did, but way to go.
Well, the roof fasteners aren't here yet.
Oh, that's true.
So they are pretty well put on notice, though, that if it's a bluff on their part,
yeah,
it may be their last time to bluff us as well. So so they're a great company to work with. I enjoy working with them and all, but at the same time, we won't put up with something like that. So
I had a question on the solar project. I don't know if this probably has come up. We just never talked about it. If we find out in a year or two that it's putting out a lot in excess of what demand is at the high school, is there ability to tie it to this building and the building?
No, we'll be not really. We'd have to put additional transformers in to boost it back up and
Okay.
the cost to run the line from the solar project when they wanted to put it on the roof and putting it out in the corner was significantly more than what they thought it was. So we will sell anything extra back
Maybe kind of
to them, but
selling it
we'll
back.
yeah, but again, you're selling it for less than what you're buying for.
Right.
But no, I really think the only time we would ever get into that would be on a September day where it's 65 degrees out and it's a Saturday or a Sunday where there's absolutely no activity in the building. The building will normally use
Pretty much all of it.
pretty much everything. Yeah, we don't really see a lot of times that we'll be selling back, but we do have that ability. Anytime there is excess, we will be selling it back. So
I had one more question. It might be a Doug question. Since this building is closed out and that savings that's not bond money, what's the plan with the difference?
it just stays.
Just stay in capital outlay for
That's
future
what I thought.
projects. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can roll that as long as we need to. There's no time constraint. So it'll
Right.
just help us out for the future.
Okay.
Tim, how's the, I can't recall, did we own the solar panels or does Evergy still own the solar panels?
Now, like Kylie, we will own the solar panels. Right now, it's a lease. It's basically a lease to own.
Lease purchase.
Lease
18
purchase,
years?
basically.
Yeah, I think we pay on 10 years.
I think, yeah.
And then after the 10 years is when anything after that, I think is pure
Yeah,
profit.
because when you look at the payback, the first 10 years, there's good payback, but nothing like the last 10 years. But actually, they pick up the maintenance on it for a full 20 years. So,
Okay, so they cover the insurance and the maintenance then, or?
that's one thing I don't know about for sure. I think they're covering, I know they're covering the insurance while it's under theirs, but the 10 to 20 year, I'm not sure whose insurance it's gonna fall under once we own it. So.
I just want to make a correction.
Okay.
It's 20 years.
Is it 20-year lease?
Yeah.
So,
Because I remember we had to do essentially a 10-year contract with a 10-year extension because we can't go over 10 years for a contract. So we had to do essentially extension with that.
That is correct. We do have to do that extension, but the
Right,
next,
but the savings and the earnings and all that we would get is over the course of 10 or 20 years.
that's correct. Yeah.
thanks, Kylie.
Any other questions? All right,
Thank
Tim, thank you. Next up is audit report. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, Doug, you want to share with us the auditor and kind of the process, and then we'll turn over to.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. We brought Sean Gordon here tonight to give us a brief overview of the audit for year end June 30th, 2021.
Good evening, everyone. As Doug said, my name is Sean Gordon with Gordon CPA. We performed the fiscal year 21 audit of the district. I know you have that, you've seen that audit report in your agenda packets. So I'll kind of go through that report section by section, just to explain some of the highlights and what you're looking at. So we'll start with pages 1 and 2. This is called the Independent Auditors Report. Here we discuss a number of items, including management and the board's responsibilities for these financial statements, and then our responsibilities for these financial statements. And our biggest responsibility is to issue an opinion on the district's financial statements for fiscal year 21. And if you scroll down to page 2, the first paragraph there, you'll see a heading called Unmodified Opinion on the Kansas Regulatory Basis of Accounting. This is kind of just a wordy way of saying that the highest and cleanest opinion we're allowed to give the district for fiscal year 21, we gave the district for fiscal year 21. So it reflects very well on financial management and internal control management by everybody involved in the accounting and recording process. Page 3, this is called the Summary Statement of Receipts, Expenditures, and Unencumbered Ending Cash. Here you'll see in the left-hand column all of the funds of the district. And then you'll see the beginning cash, receipts, expenditures, and then ending cash. And at the bottom of that right-hand column is the total cash that the district had on hand at June 30th, 2021. The next section forward is pages 4 through 11. These are called the notes to the financial statements. This, again, is kind of a wordy section. There's quite a bit of information discussed here, including information on the district's accounting policies, long-term debt information, capital project information, and then involvement in the CAPERS retirement program. This section is mostly the same as what you've seen over the past few years. There were no changes required by the state. I'm sure that's due to COVID, and we may see some changes in this section next audit period. And then the next section forward is pages 12 through 43. These are just more detailed breakouts of those funds that are on page 3. Many of these pages, you'll see a comparison to the prior operating year, which would be fiscal year 20. And then for most of the funds there, you'll see how the fund performed to the budget that was adopted for fiscal year 21 as well. And then the final section in that, in the agenda packet that you've seen there is pages 44 through 51. This is called the single audit section. Anytime an entity spends and receives and spends $750,000 or more of federal grant money, it's required by the federal government to undergo a single audit. And on page 44 there, up just one right there, you'll see all of the grants that the district received and then spent out during fiscal year 21. And for the audit, we specifically looked at the child nutrition cluster, which is at the bottom of that page. And those are the grants that the district receives for children's food service, meals and breakfast items for the kids. And we, again, are required to issue an opinion on how that grant is managed and make sure that it meets all federal requirements. And again, we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest and cleanest opinion we're allowed to give. So again, that reflects very well on how that grant program itself was managed by district staff. So that's all I had on that down copy that you have in front of you. We didn't have any audit recommendations to communicate to the board tonight. Again, that reflects very well on how the internal control system and the overall audit process was handled by everyone involved in finances for the district. Doug, we appreciate working with Doug. He does a very good job, and he thanked his staff, and they were very good to work with for the audit again this year. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
I have a question about, it'll be for next year's audit. So we're going to receive COVID funds, ESSER funds.
Yes.
Or we may have received them already. So will those be included in the grants that we get from the federal government, and then we have to show how we spent those?
Yes, that's correct. Most of our districts this year were single audit on the child nutrition grants like Spring Hill School District was. I'm guessing next year, and I've talked with Doug about this, it'll probably be the ESSER funds that we'll dive a little bit deeper into across the state.
Okay. Any questions for Sean?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, Doug, for all your hard work and your staff. Let's move on to rating intervention update. Dr. Burke.
Yeah, normally Erin would be here, but Erin, when we hired her, told us that she was going to be going to Europe these couple of weeks. And so she's worked with Mr. Wilson and he'll do the presentation.
I think first I'd like to thank Doug Schwinn for making sure we all have money in our district and can educate our kids. Second, I really do need to thank Dr. Smith. She's the one that put together this presentation. You guys know that when it comes to educational topics, I'm typically not short-winded, but you can blame her for the number of slides that are on there, not me. And then last, I think as I went through this presentation that Dr. Smith put together, it just made me re-appreciate the highest quality staff I've ever worked with, everything from administrators, principals who are juggling a million things, our directors, to our teachers that are doing great things for kids. So really important stuff that they're doing. So this was requested. We have a new assessment system and we do need to go over that with you. There's going to be some things you're going to hear me talk about that once I know more data in winter, we might be able to give you a better update on the system as we're still learning it. Dr. Smith is helping our people become experts in the system, but I gotta admit, I'm not an expert in it yet. But when it comes to looking at how we've done over COVID, I really think the data that we're looking at is we had state assessments that were comparable before COVID to now. Obviously, MAP, if we were doing MAP this year, would be another system that would have been consistent before COVID. But in our move to FastBridge, really the state assessment is our only data that we have consistent. And again, they didn't do it during COVID, but we have 2019 data, spring 2019 data, and we have spring 2021 data. So was asked that we look at numbers. You'll see numbers as well as percentages for all of these. There are 4 categories to the state assessment. If a student receives a number 1, they're judged to be not at grade level. Again, we know that this is a one snapshot test for a kid. And some of the stuff that they see in the classroom maybe is a better reflection, but if they receive a number 2, they're considered to be at grade level. If they receive a 3, they're considered to be college ready. And then 4 is just, you've knocked it out of the park and we don't know what to do with you. That's the state's terms officially. So what you can see here is that in our numbers, and again, can we move Doug Updike a little bit so they can see the data? All right, thank you. Here you go, Doug. I'm just giving you a little push up to the top here. You can see, obviously, we've added a few students. This is elementary, and at state assessment is given at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at elementary. And so we have a few more numbers in 2021 than we did in 2019. But when you start to look at the percentage of kids, and again, you can see even in this one, our numbers of kids that are college ready has really, and in fact, this is a good one to look at because a lot of them look very similar to this. This is all of our elementaries together. I'll show you by grade level here in a minute. But the biggest takeaway you'll probably get from most of these is they stay pretty close to the same in level 1. Once we get to our grade levels, you start seeing our grade level kids moving up between 2019 and 2021 to college ready. And then our exemplary stays pretty much the same. So that's a generalization. It varies a little bit by grade level, but you'll see that. And so if you see here by percentage, both basically at grade level is the same, or not at grade level, excuse me, is the same. It's a little over 10%. That's actually not terrible, but you guys know a couple of years ago, we were looking at this data, and that's one of the reasons that you guys made the decision to not put a strategic plan that focused on a variety of operational things and really focus things that were just on student learning, is because we did want to get our ELA or reading scores up, especially by 3rd grade. And then again, you can see now that the grade level has decreased because we moved a lot of those kids up to college ready between 2019 and 2021. We really think that we do have some good work ahead of us to move our not at grade levels up. And that's really the whole point of the intervention and some of our resources that we have on there. Please feel free to stop me if you want deeper explanations of this, but I know you guys can read graphs really well.
So I just wanted to clarify, or ask a clarifying question, I guess, that this is comparing all the elementary of 2019 to all the elementary of this year.
Yes,
So it's not
exactly.
necessarily the same kids.
Exactly. And in fact, that's what you'll find with all of this. These are not cohort data. In fact, we don't really track cohort data. If we did enough work, we probably could with FastBridge. I can see how difficult that is, but none of this is cohort data.
Okay.
Yeah, these are all going to be different kids, different snapshots. So what it gives you when you put all those kids together is really more of not a snapshot of the kids per se, but a snapshot of how the district is doing. So here's 3rd grade.
I have a quick question
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
clarification too. So spent a lot of time looking at this on KSD to make sure I understood it. And I just want to make sure that I understood right. When I'm looking, it looks like level 1 is on their website, which has our district data and even by school too. I thought it was very interesting, and it's all what we've reported to them, correct? So what they have on KSD is what we report?
No, it is actually reported through KITE.
Okay.
The
so
assessment
through
system.
the assessment system, and then they send it to
Yeah.
KSD.
Now, what you've got to be careful when they put aggregate data together, they always include Insight and Kansas Virtual
Right.
Academy in there.
Right.
And so actually I gathered this through what's called AMOS, the academic measures of student success is what I think the acronym stands for. But it should be identical to the same thing that's on our report
It actually
card.
was. So I was
Good.
kind of looking at that today and looking at the data that you put in thank you for putting this together, by the way, and
Oh,
thank
sure.
you to Dr. Smith when you see her. From what I understand from the KSDE website is level 1 is below grade level, level 2 is grade level but needs remediation. So that means that they need help. Level 2, level 3 is on track, and level 4 is exemplary or college. Level 3 and 4 is exemplary in college. So looking at that, level 1 and 2 is what some of the numbers that were a little bit concerning to me. I did like how I do agree with you. I think sometimes people put things out there and it's including Insight and KS, and that's not completely accurate of our district.
Sure.
But when looking at who needs help or who needs additional help or what we need to be focusing on, just combining the numbers between level 1 and level 2, because if level 2 is grade level but does need remediation, that means they still need assistance, right? So like, for instance, just pulling one of the elementary school, I do like that you can pull it out by school so that you can filter it out and filter out Insight, or just look at Wolf Creek, for example, and it said level 1 and level 2 was 23 plus 28. So that's 52% that the state thinks are under grade level or needs remediation, some sort of help. So I just think that's an important clarification.
So again, they have, again, it's at grade level. And that includes both below the 50th percentile to above the 50th percentile is included in that. But what they want is college ready. So yeah, the goal is for all of our kids to be, and we even have it in our strategic plan, to be college ready for every kid. Even though every kid may not go to college, we still want every kid to have the option to go to college. So that's our goal always.
Sure. So, but level 2 needing remediation, I'm wondering, and maybe you're going to get to this, are those the people that received the intervention letters because they were at those levels for this data that we just collected in the spring or fall, excuse me?
Yeah, we do that with Fast Bridge data, and you'll kind of see it with especially with the percentages as we go in there. So you'll see third grade percentages. And this was the data that was concerning to us, of especially those ones being above 15%, almost 20%. To us, that was very concerning. And so we wanted to reduce that with intervention. You'll see Fast Bridge at times will have actually a little above that, but that's partially due to, and MAP was pretty close to the state assessment data, but they're different types of tests. And so, yeah, when we get to Fast Bridge, I'll talk about why its data looks a little different.
Okay. I do wish that somehow the testing as well as the state almost had 5 levels, like not at grade level, but needing help, and then grade level. I mean,
Yeah,
that would be a lot.
They used to do that. They used to do an
because I feel
approaching
like
grade level.
it's a little misleading to say level 2 is grade level when that's
And then you
also
need
needing
remediation. Yeah, I don't
Yes.
understand their verbiage.
So those
on
are,
that.
I just want to be sure and point that out too, that's an important distinction.
So here's fourth grade data. It looks better than our third grade data. Again, our data looks from beginning to COVID to end of COVID very similar. I don't want to imply necessarily that COVID has had no effects, but if COVID has negatively impacted us, then we would have actually had we've had improvement, but we would have had really significant improvement over that time. And again, I have no evidence to show that COVID did or did not have a negative impact, but we can all assume that it's been a trying couple of years. And so very proud of the data, and I would have hoped even better if we wouldn't have had COVID to deal with. And then fourth grade percentages, fifth grade numbers. And then fifth grade percentages. And I'm done with state assessment data if you have any questions over the data. Pretty much speaks for itself, I suppose. That's the whole point of data. FastBridge, love Aaron. FastBridge, lots of information because this is a new assessment, and so we're learning it. FastBridge is a switch for MAP. You can look at it two ways, but the way, and you heard Mr. Sprague talk earlier about it's nice that we have assessments that can tell where kids have skill gaps. Well, the nice thing about FastBridge is it does an easier and probably better job of being criterion referenced, which means it can tell us exactly the skills that kids are missing. Now, in norm reference, they compile everything and just say, what percentile do you sit at? When it's criterion referenced, this is one of the reasons why we get numbers that look a little different than what we did with MAP. And again, we're new into FastBridge. We may see something different once we get to winter. But if a kid is doing really well in 3 or 4 skill areas and maybe has a deficiency in 1 or 2 or 3 skill areas, they're going to be highlighted for needing intervention for those skill areas. Whereas in MAP, quite possibly it would have considered it to be at grade level because in some areas they did really well, in other areas they didn't. So that's nice that we can provide intervention to more kids specific to the area, they don't have to have deficits in every area to fall out of this. These are the 4 screening assessments that we have. 2 of them are for the K-1 grades and then 2 of them are for the rest. The ones that are 2 through 12 look a little bit more like MAP. They're a computer adaptive, but they are skill-based. FastBridge also contains diagnostic assessments to help us dive a little deeper into the specific skills. And then they also have progress monitoring, because what we do is once we give interventions for kids, we measure their progress on how they're improving. So it has all of that, but all she put in here is the screening assessments because that's all we're going to look at. That's all we have data for. I'm not going to go into great detail, but early math is just telling you it's their early numeracy where it should be. And these and the early reading ones are one-to-one given assessments with those young kids. So they tend to be very accurate because of that type of assessment. You're not worrying about the motivation because literally teachers are face-to-face, one-to-one with kids. Now, our early math numbers look pretty good. We're in about 20% needing intervention, only a small number of kids needing tier 3. You guys kind of saw with that comparison to the state data, our kids do great things. And that can be attributed to our teachers, obviously, but obviously the work that parents do at home even before we get them. Because this kindergarten data here, that's reflective of what parents are doing at home. A-math is, again, more like a math. The data on this one, it's just all over the place. And you can see it kind of, and the reading almost mimics it, but it even has more of a pattern in the reading, is that it gets 8th grade, doesn't look good, and then all of a sudden back at 9th grade, it looks good again. And so I really don't have a great explanation for why this data is so variable, but maybe once we get to winter scores, we'll start to see really, is it because they just had a few deficit skills that popped them out and we were able to provide intervention for that? I really don't have a great explanation. Our MAP scores I shouldn't say it, they had some grade levels that were lower than others, but this is certainly showing that there are some areas that look maybe more variable than I'm really wondering if it is.
It kind of looks like we lose ground from 3rd up to 8th for some reason.
I know. You'll even see it more so in the reading as well.
And if I remember correctly, tell me if I'm wrong on this, the colors on this, red would be high risk, yellow would be some risk, and green would be on track.
Yes.
for Fastbridge?
Yeah. And I believe I've got that right. She just labeled them because of the tiers of intervention they're on. But yeah, if they're in green, they shouldn't be getting any intervention. If they're in yellow, they should be getting that tier 2 intervention, which is small group. And then when you're in red, you're in a really small to individual, more intensive intervention.
So it's hard to see across, but just looking like you said at 8th grade, they're somewhere between, looks like.
Yeah,
30 to
almost
40%.
35 to 40%. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Do you think curriculum could have something to do with that?
We're
up and down?
No, because we have we have a new math curriculum this year, but we've always had the same math curriculum from kindergarten through 5th grade. And then we do change in 6th, 7th, and 8th, but we're pretty, you wouldn't see that 2 through 5 is pretty variable as well. So I don't think it has to do with curriculum.
So I'd be curious. I know a lot of the reason this came up was following conferences and parents were presented with this and teachers were looking at it in a big picture. What are our math teachers? Have you heard feedback from them, or maybe we could get feedback from them on curriculum and how they are feeling with
the feedback I've gotten so far has been hugely supportive of the change to Ready Math. They love that. Of course, this data isn't about Ready Math. This is about last year's learning, but the feedback we've gotten from teachers so far has been, it was pretty expensive. I was a little nervous about spending that much money on a resource because we know that the teacher has more impact than any resource will, but I'm telling you, they love it. They love that resource.
So do you think is their opinion that last year was a hard year? COVID was a hard year?
Oh, I think any teacher is going to tell you last year was a hard year.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn from that.
So like I said, our state assessment scores did nothing but improve, but I still think it may have been better. It would have been better without COVID would be my assumption, but I don't know that for sure. So then we have early reading, which if you guys remember, we've always done DIBELS. It's the same type of DIBELS assessments at that early grades where they're one-on-one with the kid, either doing letter sounds or words or those types of things. So early reading is very similar to what they've seen in the past. This just puts it in a nice, easy to use system with everything else. I will tell you the first grade data made me pause. So you can see kindergarten looks very similar to our kindergarten math, but our first grade reading was enough that we needed to dig in. And we did dig in and we found some reasons for why that data looks like it does. I thought maybe there was a mistake or incorrect administration of the assessment on the first time. It's not actually. It's actually the accurate data. I would not in open session ever go into rationale, but if we want to do a more in-depth conversation about the data, we can do that in an executive session if necessary. But that is actually accurate data. We dug deep into it and kind of found why that looks the way it does. And so, as you know, we're working really hard on our reading, science of reading, some of that thing. So we're confident we're going to take those kids and help them out. This is probably even more dramatic than the math, but again, we're talking about assessment. This is the first time we've done it. So I don't know. It'll be curious to me when we get to winter, what kind of improvement we see from this data. But when you look at 8th grade, it doesn't register that we would have that many kids. But again, what we think has probably happened is kids have slid by because they're doing pretty well overall. This got more granular and it's popping out an area that they're having struggles with. And so when you're doing well in 5 areas and you have one area that you're struggling in, you can compensate and you can make it look pretty good. So we're actually, if this is good data, which we have no reason to believe it's not, we're actually very proud that we switched to this assessment that can give us that kind of data to really target interventions. But if it is really kids that have only like 1 or 2 skill area deficits, we should be able to see changes in it very quickly because we'll be able to do some targeted intervention with that. It's the kids that you see across the board are struggling, those are the ones that take time to get back to grade level or where they should be. That is the fall administration of our fast bridge screening data, excuse me. Questions before I go to MTSS? So it was really important to Aaron that we talk about what are we doing? And we're doing the things that you guys said we should do, and that is really pay attention to our academics. We're doing what KSDE has put down in KISA for MTSS, and really providing the resources. You guys know you provided 2 teachers per elementary building, one for math and one for reading, to help kids that had deficits. Go ahead.
So it was 2 per building for elementary, so that was 8 additional teachers, remind me, in middle.
Yeah, it actually was 7 because we had some extra, we were doing intervention already with an extra teacher at Spring Hill Elementary. So that one went into the pile. They still also have an extra title teacher as well. But we had 1 extra intervention teacher, even though it was a title building that wasn't paid out a title. So that went into our interventionists. And so, yeah, actually 10 would have been the total. So I think we had 3 teachers already that were certified teachers that were interventionists.
And that's elementary. What about middle?
We have not added teachers to the to the middle. We do have a reading teacher that provides interventionist, and I think she's going between both buildings. Is that correct? But we started at elementary. The whole point of MTSS is early intervention.
Right.
So we poured as much as we could into the early grades, and now we're working up to the middle school and eventually the high school to provide resources for them as well.
The high school has Read 180, so I don't want them to think that there's not anything at the high school.
No, and so does middle school.
The
Middle school has Read 180 as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess my concern with middle school, just looking at the numbers, if it looks like on the FastBridge data that about 50% are considered at risk.
Yep. And you'll see in our data that we actually have quite a few kids that are in tier 2 and tier 3 in our middle schools.
Okay.
And so they have done some things with their schedule to be able to serve those kids.
Yeah.
It will even be better when we can pour a little more resources into them as well.
And that, I mean, and that lines up even with, I know they're different kids because it's certain different grades now. 8th grade last year would be freshmen this year.
Yes.
But it lines up even with the state, like just looking at the state data, it says 33% are on track or above. And so that means 60-some percent. And then on our data, we're looking at 50% are at risk. So for middle school.
So here is Aaron's graphic for how the 3 tiers of intervention work together. Tier 1 is an important tier. That's what has happened in classrooms and continues to happen in classrooms to make sure that kids, we don't just teach it once and hope they get it. We continue to differentiate and make sure we catch kids in the classroom, but there are tier 2 and tier 3 resources now that we can provide extra resources for kids who need some extra time and support outside of the classroom. It actually can be pushed in the classroom, but outside of the traditional differentiation we've done in the past. So we've done a lot. I'm not going to read this to you, but I think the biggest thing is the personnel. We've talked about the teachers, but the fact is in buildings that had higher numbers of kids that need intervention, to be honest, 2 teachers really was more than enough for some buildings. But for some buildings, they needed not just 2 teachers, they needed some paras actually to provide support as well. And so we've provided some paras in buildings whose numbers were higher and needed some more support.
How many paras do we have, for example, at Spring Hill Elementary? Do you know?
Tammy, can you help me out on that one? Intervention paras?
6.
7. Do I hear an 8? Anybody for 8? So we talked about, Al, you talked real quickly about letters that elementary schools sent out. So they sent out letters to every kid that they were doing either tier 2 or tier 3 interventions for. And so these numbers here are the, you can see the elementaries, but also our middle and high school are showing the interventions that they're doing as well. I don't believe our middle or high school sent letters per se. Did you? Middle? Okay, I know high school didn't. But elementary did send letters out. It's challenging because in some buildings that had those extra resources, they maybe didn't have a ton of kids that were below grade level and were targeted for interventions with FastBridge. They didn't want their teachers to just sit there and waste those resources. So they actually upped the ante and were providing resources to any kids that also had any skills that were not as high as what the rest of their skills were. And so even kids that were above the 50th percentile in some buildings received a letter, and the letters didn't say that the kids were below grade level, but I do understand that maybe some parents thought, oh my goodness, my kid's getting intervention. That's for the kids that are struggling and below grade level. We had kids that were up above the 50th percentile, above average, above the median, who received letters and are getting intervention. And that's just because those buildings had extra resources. And that's totally on me, because I said, what you have to do is provide those. And at that time we had MAP, which did percentiles, and it considered 31st percentile and below to be below grade level. I said, we need to make sure that we have resources for every kid that falls in that area. And I said, if you have extra resources, you can do kids above there, but what we can't do is not serve the kids that really need it. So you can see the numbers here for our schools, but some of those kids, even though they're getting interventions in some schools, they may actually be doing really well. They're just getting extra support because we have teachers available to provide that extra support.
So the numbers of letters wasn't based on who was at risk or at all?
It wasn't based just on, no, what you saw in the yellow and red and FastBridge was not what those letters, some buildings it probably was, but other buildings are doing interventions with kids that are above that, or that would have been in the green.
When are our next testing dates? What's the plan for testing? How does that schedule fall?
That falls in what we call in the winter. I think it's December is when we're giving that. Is that correct, principals? January? Sorry, January is when we're giving.
So it's early fall, January, and then again
and then in the spring. Yep.
Okay. And I know we went from MAP to FastBridge, so it's kind of apples to oranges in a way, but the winter should be good data to be able to lay the two over the top and really take a look.
Certainly you should see growth in there. Yep, you're seeing, and that's the beauty of these, and MAP did a good job of this too, but to be able to see that movement along the fall, winter, and spring is really what our teachers are looking at, to see that overall improvement of kids before they get them to the next level.
Right, like a growth chart.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Worst case, if the next round of tests come in and the numbers aren't what you like, what's the game plan?
Well, I think part of it is we need time for our interventions to work. And so we're doing that. And if for some reason we're not seeing, let's say spring, and we've done a full year of interventions and we're not seeing that, then we probably need to go back to the drawing board. I will tell you, probably the most important thing we can do in reading is provide professional development for our teachers. And so we're going to be providing what's called letters training, LETRS. That is a very intense, it almost makes reading specialists out of all the classroom teachers as they go through that program. It's intense. We can't do all our teachers at once, but the number one thing to help kids learn to read is have a teacher who has gone through that type of intense reading specialist training. That's not going to happen this year all at once. We're going to get as many as we can, and we'll have to continue that, but we're not in a bad place, but we're going to get better. I feel very confident of that, but if for some reason the data came back and we're not working, that's one reason why we made our strategic plan adaptable and flexible. We'll have to attack it with some different interventions in.
The thing that's nice about FastBridge is it drills down very specifically into what we're looking for. So it's not as broad, if it's phonetically that we're having issues, if it's numerically, whatever it is, instead of this broad third grade has a problem, we can find specifically what the problem is in third grade.
Gotcha.
And I just use third grade as an example.
This is a little bit unrelated, but I was just looking at the second to last slide and the real disparity in the enrollment numbers of especially the elementary schools. Is it a boundary issue? I know that Spring Hill Elementary has a little more capacity.
Yeah, it does have a little more capacity. That 608 number, I should have checked that better. That's actually not accurate. That includes early childhood.
Okay.
That was probably
Because it
pulled.
used to be in that building.
It used to, but it is actually, the kids are considered enrolled in Spring Hill Elementary. It's one building for KSDE, and in Skyward, they're listed as one. So if you do a data mining, which is what I'm guessing she did, it will pull out a number of 608, even though 500 about. So, yeah, and those are actual bodies. We don't have that many FTE in our, because they only go halftime, but we have a group that goes in the morning and a group that goes in the afternoon of the early childhood center.
So the 500 is still quite a bit more than Timber Sage and Wolf Creek. Is that because there's more classroom space or?
No, they all have, essentially, Spring Hill Elementary has a little more space, but to be quite honest, with our special education teachers and classes, we use a lot of that up. And so they have a little more capacity, but as you can see, remember, we have a capacity of 528 in our newer buildings. And I think Spring Hill Elementary is like 550 in theory. Okay. I think Tammy's holding tight to the 528 like the rest of the buildings.
Not trying to go on a rabbit trail. It's just.
No, that's mainly because that little area hasn't changed its boundaries much. I mean, it's a very dense populated area.
Right. And one thing, Dayton Creek is so small. Well, one of the thing is it doesn't have very many fifth graders because we allowed fifth graders to stay. So I believe, I just went blank on his name, RSP.
Rob Schwartz.
Rob Schwartz's predictions in 2 years, it should even out better.
Yeah.
So I just
So
think,
anytime we open a new building, that's going to probably be our most unbalanced year.
well, because it's based on projections of what the building will reach anyway.
Yes.
And I know it's hard to look at sometimes right now. It looks like we're lopsided, but that's why, because of projections. I
Spring
thought-
Hill Elementary is by far our lowest growth area.
Right. I did, so just as researching this and looking through it, and then at the conference this weekend, and Dr. Watson even talked about the impact of COVID and how ACT, I thought it was interesting, some of the statistics he brought too, that match exactly what we're seeing. And the quote was, "Decline is more severe than any other observed in our history of a school day. Testing impact most severe the youngest students." And I think that I like what you started with, and I completely agree. We have the best teachers and they're doing the
Yeah,
best.
because
I mean,
we're not seeing the declines that the state saw. And that's a huge credit to them. And maybe without COVID, it would even been better.
right. Well, and I think we can learn from all nobody can plan for it. Thank goodness our strategic plan had flexibility, because we didn't sit in that room in that January and say, what happens if a pandemic comes
Yeah,
along too?
No,
Right. So we've had to be flexible, but COVID did teach us a lot in this, things that we would hope never to happen again. But I'd love your professional opinion. I'm hearing from a lot of at conferences, the reason that some of this came up was I heard from teachers that said that these were the hardest conferences they'd ever done, because they told more parents than ever that their children were going to need interventions. And parents, like you said,
Yeah.
that's hard for parents to hear. It's really hard. I mean, and I think that, those teachers, those conferences, really difficult for one after another to tell them, with the Fast Bridge program, yes, it looks like you're in the yellow, yeah, and your student is now going to need an intervention. But then one of the high school teachers had mentioned behavioral issues too, a lot of behavioral issues. And I think it directly correlates, right, with all of this, what we're seeing. And who knows why? Is it lack of socialization last year, the year before? Like but another one had pointed out, and this was very eye-opening, you may have seen this chart just floating around, that one of the third grade teachers told me her kids had never had phonics teaching without a mask on in third grade, because that would have been all of this year, all of last year, or part of kindergarten. So half
Yeah,
the year
they should have
kindergarten.
had some, but yeah.
But for almost, we're on our third school year of COVID mitigation in some way, shape or form, whether it was closing school or so that, but, or just even the thought that the eighth graders haven't had a normal year since fifth grade. I mean, that's significant. And I don't know how could everything be?
And if you think
on
about
track.
that first year, we were doing so much social distancing.
Mhm.
Like, I think your teachers and your principals will tell you that connection, even giving a kid a hug,
Mhm.
puts them in a better place for learning.
Yeah. But
COVID has to
I
have
think it's
some
significant to say that. And Dr. Watson said something about the governor canceled school March 2020 through May. So 9 weeks we missed of education, really.
Yeah,
Well,
that's,
and that's significant. I mean, if we didn't need those 9 weeks, why do we ever go to school from March through May, right? So how could we
Exactly.
not see this show up? So I just want to be real clear that this isn't, nobody's looking at the teachers and saying, why are these numbers the way they are? How could they not be the way that they are? How could it not be that for 50% of fifth grade in that chart, or 50% of eighth grade is somehow at risk? How could it not be? So I think it's significant to look at. And the two things that I don't like to bring something up without, I tell my kids, if you have an issue, then you better have at least an idea of a solution, right? Like, don't just complain to complain. But one of the things that I'm curious about, and I love Dr. Burke's input on this too. So looking at Spring Hill Elementary, 57 kids, I think needed, is that what it said? 57 kids needed some sort of intervention. And we have 7 paras. We all know that there's a giant para shortage. I believe Prairie Creek is at 3 paras, but just hired another one. So we might be at 4 at Prairie Creek. I think that's right. But just how at Spring Hill Elementary, how are 7 people helping 57 kids? And I think that's where some of the stress is coming from. We're losing paras right and left. Is
There's
there something
also-
we can do? Can we do something can we approve more money towards that? Can we raise paras pay for retention? Like what can we do from our level to help?
So if I understand like if we could get more paras, and are you talking about just for reading intervention? Because
Just all across the board, because it seems like we're always having a turnover of paras and they are needed in this too, right?
I think anytime that we've been asked for a para for special education, I don't know that we've ever said no to that. So, in that aspect, the reading, I would say that probably what we're going to need to do is just, if we're looking at FastBridge and it feels like that we need it, then yeah, we can certainly provide more for that. I think the biggest issue, and Michelle will probably echo this, is trying to find somebody to do it.
Right.
And I can tell you, I was with superintendents from the metro area today, and this isn't just a Spring Hill or a Johnson County or even a Kansas, Missouri thing.
Right.
Nationally, there's a shortage of people wanting to work. And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that we're struggling to have food service, along with trying to get paras, along with trying to get custodial, and that whole aspect. I know that Mr. Ewing's in construction, and I hear construction people are wanting it. I hear manufacturing wanting it. I can hear lots of people.
Everywhere, yeah.
We increased every year that we've increased our pay for teachers, we've increased our pay at the same percentage for our classified as well. So if we feel like we can get more paras by pay, we will. But I can tell you, Olathe just increased their pay, and they said out of all of that, they got 3 additional staff. So again, I don't have a trouble with paying them more. And this board gave benefits to year-round benefits to our paras a couple of years ago. We were one of the first districts but if there's a magic thing to get more people to do it, I would love to hear it, because we would certainly look at any aspect to get more paras in our buildings.
Right.
yeah, I saw on the news last night that the infrastructure bill, and I'm not being political on anything, but they talked about it creating 1.5 million jobs. And the first thing I could think of is,
We don't have enough.
where are the 1.5 million people?
There's already
Like, Yeah,
millions of
and-
jobs open.
And I would say that our paras will take every penny we want to pay them and appreciate it. And they more than earn it, guarantee you they more than earn it. They work their tails off. But I'm not sure that they're out there to just say, here's a paycheck and they'll come running, because they're just not out there.
Well, so I think maybe, and I believe you, and I know I run into labor shortages too. It's hard to keep staff. But it does seem like every personnel agenda we approve does have a para or two resignations. So that's why I wondered if we could increase their pay. Would that help retention potentially? I'm just hoping that, I'm just looking for solutions of what
We can certainly look at it. We don't want to do things in the middle of the year. As we get to the end of the year, because right now we're a much tighter budget than we will next year. We can certainly look at increase, because we're going to have to do that for competition anyway. But understand, it's not just going to be for paras. If we increase it, we're going to have to increase it across the board for our classified.
Okay.
Because as soon as we increase para pay, then the nutrition services people will leave that and go to paras. And now we'll have a shortage there. And so we're basically stealing from the left hand to do the right hand. But yeah, we can certainly increase the pay. If that's all it takes, man.
I'm just throwing a suggestion out there, just wanting to help our people as much as possible.
So I want to give a shout out to not just our parents for kindergarten, but our early childhood center and even the daycare centers in our district that have prepared a lot of our students for kindergarten. You can't do it without any of those people. And kindergarten readiness is one of the main objectives of the Kansans Can vision. I also want to say that while I appreciate the data and Dr. Smith's efforts and presentations, and yours also, Mr. Wilson, I feel like this data is premature. I think we should have, and I understand the concerns parents had, but we should look at the data not just the screening initial data, but as we're going on. This is data we should look at maybe after winter, but definitely after spring. Looking at it now just feels like we're panicking when we shouldn't be. We don't know what interventions are going to do. We don't know what our teachers' efforts are going to yield by the end of school and by the time we test in the spring. So I think we need to kind of calm it down a little bit on what's going on and really look at the data when the data comes in after we have interventions throughout the year and see if there's something that needs to be done then versus kind of, trying to find a solution now. We don't know if we need a solution because we haven't had the interventions and testing to see afterwards. So,
and we will do that and make sure that you get updates. I think we can probably do after winter, as well as obviously we need to do after spring and give you updates, especially as we're working on our strategic plan stuff.
yeah, and I would rather have our curriculum and instruction people working on this instead of getting us this data right now. It just, their efforts should be teaching and learning and not data right now. We should be waiting for that whenever we actually have data after the interventions have occurred.
We will bring an update after the winter test, though.
And I do appreciate that, but I have to respectfully disagree that half of the presentation that they put together was from 2021 from the spring data. That was half of the
Sure.
concern.
We
So
could wait still for 2022 as well. Have all 3 days.
So this also came from concerns from the teachers too, saying we need help, that I feel like I'm drowning. I'm trying to do the best that I can. So it isn't just from the FastBridge data, it's from spring of 2021. And there are other things that I think, there isn't a lot that we can do in this moment to change it, except for listen to them, listen to the teachers and what they're saying, listen to the parents, listen to each other. I'm sure that you were all copied on, I think it was blind copied on this email today from a kindergarten teacher in our district that said, I'm a kindergarten teacher in Spring Hill and had a question for the board. I'd like to stay anonymous. Now that this vaccine is available for all school-age children, are we looking to remove the mask mandate or allowing teachers to be exempt? It's incredibly difficult for me to teach phonics, letters and sounds, phonemic awareness, rhyming syllables with a mask. The students cannot hear the specific sounds that I'm teaching, and I cannot hear theirs when I'm assessing them on the sounds. It's incredibly difficult to tell the difference between sounds such as B and D, M and N. These kids are already starting without preschool or have had 2 abnormal years. And she goes on. I think we need to make data-driven decisions.
I didn't receive that.
I will forward it to Katie, not to all of you. I'll forward it on. That was just today at 9:58 a.m. But I think that that's something, I realize that this is not something that everybody wants to talk about, but if that, she's not the only one that is saying that it's incredibly difficult to teach and learn for our elementary schools, kids with masks on. And I think not for this meeting, I'm not suggesting we do anything at this moment, but I do think that we need to look at make data-driven decisions based on what Mr. Williams, Dr. Smith has presented to us, based on what the teachers are saying. Look at the county data still as today, since the start of school, we've only had 4 hospital admissions in elementary school students total. And why are we putting them through this is what I'm wondering. I realize that it's a county directive, but I don't feel like we have time to wait on the Board of County Commissioners. I was copied on a to and from Chairman Eilert, who said he would like to see that it looked, because of all of these teachers emailing him about elementary school data and how frustrated they are, he would like to look at reducing the mask mandate. But Dr. Ariola responded also and said maybe around spring break. That's a long time from now. That's a long time. So I think that we need to look at potentially making masks optional. We're not going to tell them they can't wear masks. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. But mask optional for the teachers so that the kids can see their mouths, but also mask optional for the students. And I would really like to see that happen before second semester starts to help this whole situation.
Anything further?
Can we please add that to the next agenda? The next meeting?
A discussion on.
Or an action item, because it's our last meeting before
I think
second semester.
I think we would need to have a discussion before any action is taken. So we can look at adding a discussion item.
Okay, and then possibly, we've said that because there's only one meeting, maybe we could add a special meeting. I think that this is important enough.
Any other further discussion? Thank you, Brad. Sorry, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you.
Next up is State of the District Breakfast update. Dr. Burt.
Yeah, I've asked Christopher Villarreal to give you an update. Kind of had an exciting time.
Yeah, so this is some fun information to share with you all. So I was happy that all of you were able to attend our State of the District breakfast. And we had a total of 91 guests at the breakfast this year. And it was a really great mix of people from our area. And so we were really pleased with that. And what is more important than that, I think we had 108 students participate in the State of the District breakfast this year. That number is a little bit off because it is adding up the individual head counts for each group that we had. And we know that some of our students, it's part of the one of the benefits of being in a small community is that our students participate in multiple activities. So we had kids literally running out of their performance to change clothes, to get into their next performance clothes and running back in so they could participate in all the different groups that they do. One of the things that I would love to highlight is there are a few photos in this slide. You saw a couple on the slide before this, on this one, and on the next one that I'm going to show you. And our journalism students took all of these photos at the event. And so they did a really beautiful job capturing the event for us as well. So not only did we have performance groups, but we also had the volunteer club and journalism participating in the event. And our communication department put together highlight videos for the majority of the departments here at the district level, and we did add those to our YouTube channel. So for people who weren't able to attend the State of the District breakfast, or for community members who are just interested in seeing or hearing what our different departments are up to, those are available on our YouTube channel. All of them are available in a playlist called USD230 State of the District 2021. And more fun stuff. We were able to award just last week $9,982 in teacher excellence grants through our Spring Hill Education Foundation, with some of the money that came in from our sponsors for the foundation. So you'll get more information about those teacher excellence grant winners at a later meeting. We're going through kind of the purchasing process and all of that right now. So that was a wonderful benefit of the breakfast. And that's what I have for you. Any questions for me?
I just wanted to say that I thought it was very, very well done. I appreciate your work, your team's work, all the students. It was actually a really great idea to have the volunteer club walk us down so we could get to know them and understand what their aspirations are and what they're doing in school beyond the volunteer club. It was just a really good idea, and the whole presentation was very, very well done, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I wanted to say, I think it's kind of amazing that that was their day off. So many of those kids came in and performed for us on their day off, and of course the journalism and volunteer club. So also Christopher did an incredible amount of work. Each year they kind of give me a heads up about what I'm being voluntold that we're going to be doing. And so Christopher had this great idea to do all this, and I thought it was very, very well done. So kudos to Christopher, his staff. I know Katie helped. So all the people that made that happen. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd want to say thank you to, and just seeing some of the people that were there, the, CEO of Olathe Medical Center was there, and just people that you want in the room to see what's going on, the great things that are going on in our district. So thank you for putting together such a great event.
Yep. And I will shout out by name real quick, the committee that worked on the breakfast with me. So I led the committee, was Katie Claire, Landon Parker, and Carly Miller. And so I appreciate all of their help in putting the event together.
It was really fantastic.
Thank you, guys. It was great. And you mentioned something that reminded me of something I read this last week, and I don't remember where, but they said in Kansas, age 0 to 19, they have more volunteers than anywhere else in the nation.
It's awesome.
We've got great
That was
kids.
pretty cool. So,
Very, very good.
wish I could remember where I saw it. That's my memory.
All right. Thank you.
Next up is the list, items for the board.
I did reach out to Johnson County, and they were supposed to get back to me because they want to do something more than just have a regular tour. And so they have not gotten back to me. So I will continue to follow up on that. Student representatives, we were going to have them there, but we decided that the board really needs to have a discussion, and you need to be very specific about what you want from the students. And so we didn't think it would be good to have all the students here and have a conversation about, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. We should really have a good specific idea of what we want them to do and give them guidance. So we are adding that to the November 29th agenda. So you will have Dr. Jordan here to talk to you about the values survey. And then we're going to spend some time talking about what it is that you want from the student representatives. And then that way everybody has plenty of opportunity to give input. So think about what you want from them. So those are the two list items that I've been involved with.
One thing that I think would be interesting to add to the list is I attended last week on Zoom the Career and Tech Ed Advisory Committee meeting for Insight. And, being a national school, national company, I think they have some really interesting things that they're doing that I think all of us would be really interested in hearing about. And they're really reaching out. Ashley Anderson, right? The CTE. I don't know what her official title is. Anyway, she's coordinator.
she is really reaching out because they have students across the state. So really trying to get context because they're doing internships and different things. And I think it's being really well done. And it was fun to kind of pull some of our local people into that group with entrepreneurship and just, business things. But I know they're doing some healthcare programs and some different things too. So it'd be interesting to hear all the things for all of you guys to hear.
Under the future bond issues, I'd like to put on there, looking into the CTE program, having their own space. I understand after the meeting at the high school, I understand Mr. Shockley is very close to turning students away, or maybe that his class is that full. So, is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, we can only have a certain number in there safely.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I had an item. I was kind of speaking to a couple of food service companies at the conference this year, and I know we've had a few comments from parents. I was curious if we have done any surveys of parents and students on our food service. I've heard that's kind of a standard thing that a lot of the food service companies do, is put out surveys periodically just to make sure that they understand what the parents and students are thinking. I didn't know if we'd done that recently. Like to
Mr. Anderson, I do believe that JC is planning to do that as part of the strategic planning.
Okay,
is to do some surveys and then obviously follow up to make sure she is improving in those areas that she's wanting to improve in.
Okay, great.
Anything else? All right, on to the board work calendar.
We should be right where we should be right in a line for the November. The only thing is to discuss driver's ed fees. Doug was dealing with an audit, and we figured that driver's ed fees would be something that could probably wait a month or two. So everything else is, I believe, right through here. Training for the district negotiation team, even though we have a 2-year contract, the team members still get to go through negotiation training. And we'll do that with Greg Goheen. Anybody else that wants to do that, it's a video that you get to watch for about an hour. So.
All right, thank you. Committee reports. I'll do a KASB report. Convention was this past weekend. Had some great general sessions from David Horsager with the 8 Pillars of Trust. Always, I mean, he did a brief one last year virtually, which was really good, but this was even better, I thought. It's just, how boards of, for us, it was how boards of education can work together through trust. And the 8 Pillars of Trust, there are 8 C's that he goes through, and just a very, very good presentation and thought provoking. And then had some sessions on Saturday, and whoever was there, they can talk about those. And then we had some excursions Saturday night, which were a lot of fun. Got to get to mingle with other board members that I've never talked to in the past. So it was a lot of fun. And then Sunday morning was Principal L. He's a middle school principal in Philadelphia, and so inspirational. Talked a lot about in a lot of context, without a lot of context, he was basically saying, let our kids fail sometimes. Failure leads to success. So that really resonated with a lot of people in there, and very interactive presentation. We got to shout out ideas and so on. So it was a great conference overall, and great people to work with. In fact, the KASB staff that put it together were basically new for this year. So it was a completely different format than has been in the past. And I think it went very, very well.
I attended most of that as well. I didn't go Friday night due to a family commitment, but Saturday and Sunday Sunday morning was really, really good. I think if there's any chance, I don't know how much it would cost to bring him to our district, but wow, he was amazing. And I think he said he was the 5th of 6 boys raised by a single mother in inner city Philadelphia, and just great, just really great. So that was good. And then I went to some sessions on positive PR, which is really interesting, and building district culture, and then advocacy one with Mark Tallman, which I think both a couple of you guys were in. I thought he gave some good direction on advocating for your district on different things. So
I attended Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as well, and did think the conference was really well put together. I thought they did a really good job. The speakers were really great. I appreciated hearing from Dr. Watson too, and just his outlook on the state, but President L was just amazing. I mean, and I'm so much so that I was immediately Googling his books. Yeah, I mean, he was really, really good. I attended a breakout on social emotional learning. Then I attended the next one on DEI. And then the advocacy one, Nelson and Sharon were both in there too. It was really about upcoming legislative issues really in the state. I did sign up to represent as a board member at the state level for that as well. So that'll be upcoming. And I think I'm on a call on Fridays now is what I understand about.
Is that the Kansas Advocacy Network?
Yes.
I'm a
Yep.
part of that as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be really, really
It's,
interesting.
it's a very good group of people. It's not just board members, it's superintendents and board members. And actually, really anybody can be a part of it. You don't have to be either one of those. If you're a principal or if you're just interested in advocating for education, you can be part of it.
And then the other one that I attended that was really interesting was jobs for post-graduation. That was really a very insightful breakout. And I've got lots of notes from that and hope to bring that more later as well. And then the roundtable discussion with the State Board of Education members was over a lunch. And it was really interesting to hear board members from across the state and what questions they asked of them and what their responses were. It just was kind of interesting to be a fly on the wall with that. However, following that meeting, so kind of adding to my list or what I reports, I was asked to be on the State of Kansas Mental Health Task Force. So I'll be joining that task force and representing us there. With that, part of how that conversation came about, this isn't necessarily about me, but want to recognize our district in this. Many of you know what Pathway to Hope is. Kirsten Adkins lives in our community. She's the executive director for Pathway to Hope. And I was invited to a dinner, and there were 4 finalists for the year-end award. And on my stuff said my name with Spring Hill School District. So we were honored as one of the 4 in the region. So not just in the metro, but in the region. So that was a really impactful night. And I was really just proud to see Spring Hill School District up on their screens as a partner with mental health. And it was a giant honor. So that's one thing I attended. I'm still on the anti-vaping task force for the state of Kansas as well. The high school Psych Council is coming up on Thursday and Timber Sage on the 16th. So I'll be there as well. Thank you.
One other note, the president-elect designee was voted on as well, and it's Art Gutierrez from Emporia School District. There were supposed to be 2 candidates available for people to vote. Laura Bors from Garden City did not win her reelection, so she had to drop out of the race. So look forward to Art's leadership. He's really, I've gotten to know him over the last couple of years. He's a very good guy and understands education. And from a different point of view, Emporia is a little different than Western Kansas. It's a little different than Eastern Kansas. So he brings a different perspective.
So I did serve as a voting delegate since I was the alternate to the alternate and didn't think I'd probably have to do that. And then I only voted for the one person that you could vote for. So I did my job and did it well.
Yeah. And I'll serve on the the delegate assembly for the December meeting for the legislative items.
Wow. I was just going to say the delegate assembly was really pretty cool. I'd never been to one before, and they had, it's pretty formal. And so they had a color guard from Leavenworth. And, you did the Pledge of Allegiance, and one sang the national anthem, and it was really, it was neat. I was glad to be a part of it, even though I felt like it was a little anticlimactic.
Yeah, true. Yeah, and Friday night with dinner, we actually had students from Wyandotte High School singing a few songs before dinner got started. So conference always brings students in, and it's something that we enjoy seeing. So I think that's it from the conference, and I don't think I have anything else. Anybody else? All right, superintendent report.
Yeah, first of all, it's November. And so, boy, it seemed like this has been a long first semester. Want to thank outstanding staff out there, the principals and directors. We have had a lot of things going on, and seems like, you get that big break in the summer, and it seems like we didn't get much of a break. So kudos to you, and thank you for all of your incredibly hard work and continuing to plow ahead. So thank you. Wanted you to hear that. One of the things that they never taught you in Superintendent 101 is we have soybeans. And so I got a call today and said, hey, we have soybeans. So I will be watching soybean prices in the next month or two, because I have a certain amount of time that I have to sell soybeans before they start charging us rental space on that. And so, of course, April was really high. And right now we're in kind of an all-time low. But that's kind of a fun part of my job, because anytime I get that call, I'm like, yeah, now I got to start watching soybean prices. That money that money will go into high school activities, and then we will split part of that and put it into the 2 middle school activities. And then we have some land up north that we farm, and they pay us by the acre on that. And then that money goes into elementary activities. So if anybody ever wants to know what happens to the soybean, that goes right in straight to the kids. But yeah, excited to be watching soybean activities for a while. Yeah, grain marketing. So, and I've got some people in futures that want to help me too. So other than that, just remind the board I'll be out of town for most of this week. So didn't get to go last year, so really excited about that. But Mr. Wilson will be really here, really competent, and can take care of any questions you have. So other than that, I'm good. I'll let you guys go.
So just a reminder, we have a work session November 29th, 6 p.m. now, right here. We'll hear from KSB, from Dr. Brian Jordan, and from Austin. Can't remember Austin's name now, but they'll be presenting the value survey, and we'll also talk about student representatives at that meeting. With that, Doug, do you have anything before I adjourn?
No, I don't. I don't have anything additional.